Welcome back. Pope Francis has appealed for an end to what he said is the senseless war in Ukraine in his traditional Christmas Day message, which was broadcast around the world. A day after Kyiv said a Russian strike on Kherson had killed at least 5 people and wounded another 35. Dr. Charles Sinkala is an international relations expert who joins us now from Zambia, I believe, tonight. Doctor, thank you for your time on this Christmas Day. So the Pope, among many who are hoping that the new year will at least bring some level of peace between Russia and Ukraine, but when you look at the climbing death toll and the continuing violence, do you think that there will be any peace in that region come 2023?
Thank you so much, Tembekile, for having me, and good evening to your viewers. As people in this world, we always pursue an agenda to have an idea that one day or sooner or later we shall have the end in the conflict between Russia and Ukraine, probably the end to the conflict of the war. But there are negotiations. As you're aware, we had President Zelensky, who visited Joe Biden, to discuss in terms of seeing how possible it is to renegotiate, to change their stance. I think there was a position of Ukraine of not negotiating to Putin until Putin has been removed from Russian government or head of state and government of Russia. But I think seeing the escalation and the damage of the continued war of almost 11 months, I think we shall see some turn of events to a diplomatic discussion and the end to the conflict.
Is there a place, do you think, for an institution such as the Catholic Church to perhaps play the role of mediator if the independent or sovereign governments of the world are not seen as neutral enough on either side to indeed intervene?
The Catholic and the Vatican, commands a certain number of people in the world, and their influence is very pivotal in terms of the ending of conflicts in the United Nations of all the countries. It is very important that the clergy, the Pope, and any other involvement from that side, should be involved in terms of mitigating the risk of escalation of conflicts to go beyond any reasonable understanding of humankind. But as always, with every two sides of war, there's always an agenda for certain individuals to benefit for those wars. And one will only, question that why is the Vatican, city coming only out now? The war has been 11 to 12 months now, in Ukraine, and millions and millions of people have died. Why has not the Vatican city and either the international community, including the United Nations, not conveyed the meetings or the call to end the conflict from that side? But any hope, even if it is delayed such as this, we anticipate that the involvement of the Vatican, especially the Pope, in terms of the world peace in that region, should be celebrated, as we can see a light at the end of the tunnel.
To be fair to the Vatican, the Pope has previously called for peace and an end to the bloodshed in Ukraine in previous services. I think even just after or during the Easter Mass period, he made similar remarks then. But regardless of who intervenes, you referenced the idea of a United Nations intervention. It seems at this stage that neither Moscow or Kyiv are willing to negotiate because they've staked so much on this. Almost a year on, neither side wants to be seen as the loser. Do you think that's the right reading?
Well, to some extent, but what you can hear from the last speech from President Putin has been always extended an arm of diplomatic negotiations. The question is whether or not President Zelensky would like to sit on that table to negotiate. But in terms of the conditions of negotiations to end the war, one of the conditions has been that Russia must leave, and I say that again, that they must leave the premises or the jurisdiction of Ukraine, then they can negotiate from there. But in any case, we can see now that now we can see the paradigm shifting now, that if Ukraine can ease up their stance in terms of calling for Putin to be removed as head of state and government for Russia, they can negotiate with him in terms of ending the war. And I think we can see the talks now in terms of consultation. The damage has been extreme in Ukraine, especially for the peoples of Ukraine. And not only the peoples of Ukraine, we can see the damage to the economic activities across the world in terms of economical activities, commodities, oil and gas, had a very, very big impact, as well as the sanctions that has been sanctioned to Russia.
You mentioned the United Nations. Once more, I'm going back to that point, and I wonder what success you think it would be able to achieve as a platform for peace between the Russians and the Ukrainians, when you consider that in the recent votes or sittings which have sat to discuss the situation, we've seen very clear divisions among the UN members, even at Security Council level. There's not been universal agreement on the right way to proceed in trying to dissolve the situation.
Yes, indeed, Mikile, but we must not underestimate the influence of Russia on the United Nations Security Council. Russia has been, at the United Nations Security Council for many years, and its influence has to be respected to that regard. And I think in terms of negotiating regarding the conflicts between the two countries, they have to regard Russia as not only the one on the wrong side, but of course they must consider factors such as the intuition of factors, influences from the United Nations in terms of mitigating the risk, and not only to condemn Russia, but to look at the outside. How and why is the United States of America spend almost $200 billion in terms of military support to Ukraine? And why has it been so much in terms of if they call for the peace in the world and all those other factors? But United Nations, especially at the level of Security Council, they play a pivotal role in terms of harmonizing the situations around the world. But they do not have that influence that they can make a phone call to Putin and make a phone call to President Zelensky and say, can we two guys sit in the table and look at the factors? Are these factors being influenced from the external factors such as NATO? Are these factors being influenced by the United Kingdom? Are these factors influenced by the United States' appetite to sell ammunition and guns to Ukraine? And from that angle, then they can establish, areas of negotiating. But of course, with every war, there's also third parties involved that we must not forget. That these third parties, they play a very pivotal role in terms of influencing to escalate the war, because of they continue to print the United States dollars.
Charles Sinkala, good to speak to you, international relations expert. Thank you for your time.